Absolutely, Alison. Yeah, as we heard there, a multilingual speech from Ursula von der Leyen, mostly speaking in English and French, and a little bit of her native German and some Italian at the end there, but showing her European credentials, of course. It was perhaps not as much of a jubilant speech in terms of some of the EU's achievements relating to the pandemic as some might have expected. Ursula von der Leyen striking somewhat of a sober tone at the beginning, recognising the challenges that this pandemic has posed to the EU and saying that the next year ahead will be another test for Europe. However, she said it's a test that she thinks that Europe will certainly pass. So she did flag some achievements. Of course, she talked about the high rate of vaccination across the European Union, with more than 70% of EU adults fully vaccinated by the end of the summer, fulfilling a promise from the European Commission. But she also talked about the need to vaccinate the world, and this was where one of the announcements of the speech came. She said the Commission is adding a new donation of 200 million doses of coronavirus vaccines for non-EU states, some of the poorer countries in the world, that investment to extend into the middle of 2022. And she was talking about this as an investment in solidarity and in global health. Some other major areas that she talked about, the European economy, of course, transforming it for the future, talk about digital infrastructure, a transition to a more green economy. A lot of mentions of European youth, of talking about how they are the future, how European leaders need to listen to them, and another announcement, in fact, for European young people, talking about a new programme to allow them to do work experience in other member states more easily, building on the Erasmus study programme that already exists. Just to take you through a couple of other areas that we might want to go into in a bit more detail later, of course, lots of talk about foreign policy, Afghanistan, saying that Europe stands by the Afghan people. That, of course, leads into talk about migration, which she acknowledged is a very divisive issue in Europe, and she was calling on European leaders to do more work on a European pact. Talk about cooperation with other partners around the world, calling for a deeper cooperation with the United States and flagging up some problematic relationships as well. For example, Belarus sending Iraqi, mostly refugees, to the Lithuanian border, talking about this as a hybrid threat. In terms of threats, talking about the need for more European cooperation in terms of security and defence. And there was also quite a long section at the end talking about threats within the EU in terms of rule of law, attacks, she said, within EU member states on democracy, for example, on the judiciary, on the freedom of the media. Ursula von der Leyen careful, of course, not to call out any particular member states, but it's no secret that there are procedures ongoing against Hungary, against Poland, and that Slovenia is also being called out quite frequently at the moment as well for attacks on rule of law. So plenty of areas covered there by Ursula von der Leyen, plenty for us to digest and go through, of course, throughout today here in Strasbourg with our guests and on France 24.
All right, Europe editor Kat Nicholson, thank you very much.